Hello and welcome to the Spark Accounting Solutions show. I'm Jenny Q, the host, and I'm excited to have Julie Babcock-Hyde, CPA, CFM, QuickBooks Pro Advisor, Profit First Professional, all the things that any small business owner would need. Welcome, Julie.
Hey, thank you. And I'm glad to be here talking about more fun stuff today.
More really important stuff, and that makes it fun, right?
Exactly.
So what we're going to talk about today is the 5 things you should know about COVID relief for small business. And my first question to you is this what we're talking? Are we talking about the CARES Act? Is this what we're talking about?
We have moved past the CARES Act now.
Okay.
So earlier in the month, our president signed some executive orders, technically, so that the fact checkers out there don't get mad at me. It's 1 executive order and 3 memorandums, but most people are referring to all of them as executive orders. So just to keep things simple, I'm calling them executive orders. But so we have that. And then we also have some updates. A lot of people are like, everybody's being quiet about the PPP loans. What's going on? What are we supposed to be doing? And so I wanted to do a quick update on that as well.
Okay, and that's really useful because as the PPP loans, as that whole initiative was being rolled out, there was so much confusion around it. So we need the updates to stay up to date and make sure we're checking all the boxes and doing it all right.
Exactly.
All right. So we've got 5 things we're going to go over that you need to know. We're going to start. Let's just bring it, Julie. Number 1, executive order, payroll tax holiday. Now, it sounds fun because of the word holiday, but what does it really mean?
So in this, and this is one that was a memorandum and not an executive order.
Okay.
But so in this, Donald Trump signed this and basically said that starting, September 1st through the end of the year, employee withholdings for Social Security tax could be deferred. So what that basically means is, and it's only for people that are making less than $100,000 a year or $4,000 for each pay period. So it's just Social Security. So it's 6.2% of payroll. However, employees are starting to ask about this, and it's not been implemented yet.
Ooh, okay.
And so we've got employees that are checking with their bosses. Their bosses are calling their accountants and their payroll companies and everybody else. And so there's a problem with this. And the problem is that, number 1, there are no guidelines yet from the IRS or Treasury about how to implement this. And employers are scared. And I'm going to tell you why employers are scared. Typically, it's the employer's job to remit Social Security taxes to the IRS. And they do that monthly or quarterly or semi-weekly, depending on whatever pay schedule they're in with the IRS. So the concern is, who's going to collect this money from the employee? It's a deferral. It's not a forgiveness. It's just a deferral.
Okay.
So people are getting 4 months of Social Security taxes deferred that as of right now, they have to pay back at some point. When do they have to pay it back? How do they have to pay it back? Are the employers responsible for collecting it? Is the IRS responsible for collecting it? What happens if the employee is terminated and the employer is responsible for collecting it and they don't have any checks to take that out of? So there's a whole lot of questions, problems, concerns, and probably some cuss words about how to implement this. What to do about employees that are like wanting this and expecting this, and how do we handle this? And we don't know yet. And so most of the major companies have not implemented, and most of the payroll companies have not implemented either.
So what is your recommendation to a small business owner today? Because all we have is the information today. What is your recommendation?
Yeah, until we have guidance from the Treasury and the IRS, I would not move forward with it.
Okay.
And you probably, even if you wanted to move forward with it, you would probably have a hard time because your payroll company is likely not supporting it yet.
Okay.
So stay tuned, wait for the regulations, wait for the guidance, and hopefully we can start this. The other thing to think about as employees, some people are saying that the employees have the ability to opt into this, Some
Okay.
people are saying that the employers have the ability to opt into this. And so I guess the thing for employees to really think about is that this is, at this point, this is not a forgiveness of these taxes. It's just a deferral. And so do you really want to pay in 4 months of Social Security taxes in a few months?
I think it would depend, right, on individual situations. Like
It
that
absolutely does.
6% make or break you right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
And so everybody really has to weigh that decision of, do you really want to owe the government more
Right.
money
Right.
than at the beginning of the year, around the same time that you're going to be filing taxes and everything else? So
Right.
think through that wisely once we get the guidance on how to implement this, whether it makes sense for you to do or not.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
But now we have a context to put this in. We've heard
Exactly. And
the holiday did make it sound fun, but it's really not that fun.
it doesn't sound as much fun now, does it?
Not
It's not a holiday at all.
It is not a holiday. Okay. Well, it depends on what kind of holidays you have with the
That's
family. All right, let's move right along. So number 2, extending enhanced unemployment benefits. Okay.
So everybody knows about the extra $600 that
Right.
people were getting for unemployment. And, small business owners were having some problems with getting employees to come back. It's an interesting issue because obviously people needed to still be able to do things, but as employers were reopening, it was creating some challenges for employers. So there was a lot of talks about, was this the right number? Was this the right thing to do? Who knows? Because we're kind of operating in a situation where we've never been in before, but we still have people that are affected by unemployment. We still have people that need to pay, rent, pay their mortgage, feed their kids. And so there's still people hurting out there. And so what this memorandum did was it extended enhanced unemployment benefits. And it's supposed to be an extra $400 a week instead of $600 a week. But they set up a rule basically that said the federal government would fund 300 of it and the states needed to fund the other 100 of it. And so what's been happening is a lot of the states have been saying, "Oh, we are not going to adopt this because we don't have the money for the 100."
Yeah, the moment that came out, I was like, how can the federal government make a commitment on behalf of the states? Like, I just didn't get that.
Well, and there are states that are absolutely like not doing this. I think Arizona was the first to implement this.
Okay.
And other states are starting to implement this, and they've kind of figured out that as long as they're paying people at least $100, that might count as their 25% of this, and then the federal government adds on the 300. So people are not getting an extra 400; they're only getting an extra 300. But it's going to vary from state by state as to whether or not they opt into this and get this help for their people because of everybody's a little cash strapped right now. We've done a lot of support for people affected by COVID, whether that's through unemployment, health stuff, and the states are running out of money right now.
Yeah.
And some of the states were already out of money before this started. And so as you're looking at this, kind of really look and see what your state is doing. Like I mentioned, like Arizona was the first to do checks. I know Idaho, we're in Idaho and we've got a lot of clients here in Idaho. Governor Little said on August 17th that Idaho will participate, but people will only get the extra 300. And then they're looking at some other things for the people that are getting less than 100 right now from the state. And then like Florida's in. So you really have to look and see what your state did, because this may or may not be a benefit for your team or even for you as a business owner right now.
Okay. All right. So another thing that we really don't have a lot of information on, but we have a tiny bit more.
We have more, but we don't. Yeah, like it's gonna vary state by state. So like you have to do a little bit of research to see what's happening in your state.
All right, good to know. All right. Number 3, evictions.
Okay, this one was a real executive order.
Okay.
This one's a real one, but it was supposed to be a moratorium on evictions. With the CARES Act, we had a moratorium on evictions. Unfortunately, this executive order is not an extension of that moratorium.
Hmm.
And I
Okay.
say unfortunately, and truthfully, the unfortunate part depends on whether you are a tenant or a landlord, right? And so I want to acknowledge the fact that we've got both sides in a jam right now
Sure.
because a lot of landlords still have mortgage payments to make,
Right.
or they're relying on that income to supplement their income to live off of. And if they're not getting rent payments, they're, they're not able to take care of themselves. But then we've got tenants who maybe are out of work and, we don't really want them kicked out on the streets right now either. So this is kind of a crazy situation, but the grand scheme of this executive order is that it's really just a recommendation to Health and Human Services, a recommendation to the CDC to, make a decision about whether we should extend this moratorium, and a recommendation to HUD to see if there are additional funds available to help renters and other people that cannot pay their residential rent and mortgage. So this doesn't have the teeth behind it that the original eviction moratorium had. It's really just a recommendation. And to my knowledge, Health and Human Services, Centers for Disease Control, and Housing and Urban Development, none of those have come out with any additional guidance either
Okay.
on what can be done around this. So it's there. It's there as kind of an encouragement to not evict people, but it doesn't have a lot of teeth behind it right now.
All right. Okay. All right. And there it is for evictions update. All right. So number 4 is student loan borrowers relief.
So the only thing I have to say about this one is this one actually got implemented.
Okay.
So this one does not have a ton of questions around it.
Okay.
So that's the good news.
That is good.
CARES Act basically put a pause on federal student loan payments. Not everybody has federal student loans. Some people have private student loans.
Right.
These are for federal student loans. They put a pause on payments. This memorandum extended that through the end of the year. And it also has waived interest.
Okay.
Reduce the interest rates to 0 through the end of the year.
So no payments, no interest through the end of the year.
Yeah. So
for federal student loans.
For federal student loans. So
okay.
if you are unemployed right now, this gives you a little breathing room. If you are still gainfully employed, this might be a good time to continue making payments on your student loans. There's no interest accruing, so you can knock that principal down, get these paid off faster maybe.
Sure.
So think through that and think through what is the best move for you. As far financially, do you need that money to live, or would it be beneficial to you to really, knock down your student loans during this time when there's no interest? All your payments are going to principal, and that's going to help get that paid off faster.
Yeah, perfect. Great advice on that. Okay. Yes. And last but certainly not least, we have the PPP updates.
Yes. I thought we were going to only have one thing to talk about with this, but we actually, I don't know how many, I quit counting how many interim final rules we had out. There was a new one this week.
Okay.
This is like, we were getting like 2 a week for a while.
Right.
And I think everybody's kind of on, rule change fatigue with this and doesn't want to talk about it anymore. But there were some clarifications that came out this week that I want to go over. So with that, when you're looking at owner's comp, there's some limitations on how much owner's compensation can be forgiven if you have owner employees. If you have owner employees that own less than 5%, this says those owner compensation limits do not apply to those people that own less than 5%. So that's some good clarification for those owners that really don't own that much. That's not going to impact them as much for their forgiveness. The second thing is it gave us some things that loan forgiveness cannot include. So let's say you rent your building for, $100 a month, but you have somebody that sublets for $500 a month. They clarified and said that you can take the $1,000 that you pay minus the $5,000 sublet income that you have, and you only can do forgiveness on the $500. because they don't want people to be basically double dipping. So no double dipping on sublet income. And they also said most of the rent that you're paying to related parties and most of the mortgage interest that you're paying to related parties are not going to be allowed
Interesting.
for forgiveness.
Right.
The other thing they finally came in and said was a lot of people were asking, well, what if I don't have an office? What if I use my home office?
Mhm.
And we've kind of said, we don't know. We don't have any specific guidance on that. We do now. Home office expenses are limited to the same proration that you used in 2019. So if you had a home office expense last year and you've got one this year, you should still be able to use it at the same proration.
Okay.
So if you were using 10% of your house before, you would be able to do something similar for this year and have that be forgiven. But that came out. But there's a whole lot of pending bills that are out there right now that address some other issues that Congress is out until after Labor Day. So nothing's going to happen on these, but they all still are alive and possibilities. So the first one that we've been talking about, and the banks are waiting for it to happen, trade groups are waiting for it to happen, accountants are waiting for it to happen, small business owners are waiting for it to happen, is there's a bill out there looking at kind of a very simplified version of forgiveness for PPP loans less than $150,000. That would make the forgiveness process basically an attestation that you had used it as intended. And the banks wouldn't have to go through the testing process. The SBA wouldn't have to go through the testing process. These would just be automatic. It would forgive about 80% of the loans, but only about 20% of the value. So these are the smallest loans.
Okay.
So we're all hoping for that. I don't think the banks or the SBA actually have the bandwidth to do this. And accountants, we really don't want to charge our clients to get forgiven on this loan.
Right.
It can be as easy as just sign this paper. So a lot of the banks do not have forgiveness. They're like, we're working on our forgiveness portal. And then they'll finally be like, we're hoping to see what happens with this. So they're really waiting. Most of the banks are waiting on this. But people are getting nervous because they want this loan forgiven. But just as a reminder, when they changed the rules and kind of extended things out for the PPP loan, they changed it so you have 10 months after the end of your covered period to apply for forgiveness.
Okay.
So that's we're not anywhere near that 10 months. So take a deep breath, wait and see what happens. So that's one bill that's kind of out there. The other two that are out there that may be beneficial for small businesses, there is talk of possibly a second round being available, like a second draw for people.
Really? Okay.
So whether that happens or not, I don't know, but it's out there. And the other one is something that allows businesses that if they didn't get the correct amount of PPP loan in the first place, to get the rest of the money that they should have gotten.
Okay.
So both of those could be good news for businesses. So we're kind of waiting to see how all of those play out. So I think the important thing on this PPP stuff is, continue, like if you still have money left, continue to spend it on qualified expenses that are forgivable. And, just be patient and wait for the final rules to come out.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Wow. That's a lot of information. I don't know how you keep all of this in your head. And I'm sure that as people are watching this, they probably are wondering about specific questions for their unique situation. So what's the best way for them to get those questions answered?
If it's something that's not really personal, that feel free to post a question below this.
Okay.
If it's something really, really specific to your business, feel free to hit the contact us button on our Facebook page, and we will be happy to see if that's something that we can help you with or not.
Excellent. Julie, thank you so much. Always a ton of information and also a little fun. So thank you.
Happy to give people an update because it is a crazy time.
It is a crazy time, but we're making it. We're all making it. All
We are
right.
making it, but there's crazy weird things going on. And if we got to keep our small business owners updated so that if there's something that they would benefit from, they can take advantage of it.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.